Back to Capitol Hill, John Harwood is now with Representative Adam Putnam there of Florida, the chairman of the Republican Conference. John?
Bill, thanks. We are joined by Congressman Putnam. And Congressman, let me ask you, this vote cleared a higher bar than a lot of people expected. The conventional wisdom on something like this is once you get enough to pass it, a lot of people want to vote no. What happened to cause so many members to flip over and you got a final vote up to 263, almost 60 more members than you had the other day?
Well, a couple of things have happened since that first vote. This has become people have become far more painfully aware of what the credit market crunch is doing to their local small businesses and individuals who are trying to get access to credit for a new vehicle or a student loan or a home mortgage. That awareness wasn't really there going into Monday. As this thing has incubated, it has really reached down into every congressional district, and there was a far greater awareness of the severity of the problem.
Legislative additions to the package, it was also that awareness of what was going on.
It was a far greater awareness that had an impact. Obviously the things that the Senate did, actually I think really sort of hurt the process. Obviously there was good tax policy in there as it relates to states like mine that have no state income tax, preventing 21 million families from being hit with the alternative minimum tax. Those things helped, but ultimately I think people understand how serious this crisis is that we're facing.
Representative Putnam, I'm curious, Bill Griffith here again, do you sense that any of the Republicans who voted yes on this put their chairs in jeopardy come November 4th?
Well, clearly the vocal number of calls to our district offices and to our Washington offices have been from people who are very angry about this. And, I understand that anger. I understand why they're frustrated if they believe that this is the original Paulson plan, or if they believe that we're simply bailing out some millionaires in Manhattan. But that's just not the case, and I think
do you sense that the Republicans could lose precious seats in the House as a result of this vote today?
This should not have been a political consideration. This is about avoiding an economic collapse.
And Bill, I got to say one thing. I was talking yesterday to Tom Cole, who chairs the Republican Congressional Committee, and the irony of this is if you vote yes and you avert an economic catastrophe, members aren't going to get a lot of credit for that, because if they don't see all the consequences people have been worried about, the opponent can go attack them for the vote. But I suspect, as Congressman Putnam suggested, aren't likely to see a lot of people lose their seats. But I want to ask him one more thing looking forward, because we always look forward in this business. The Democrats were saying, Nancy Pelosi, Rahm Emanuel, others, this is just the first step, and they're looking ahead to next year's Congress to a lot more reform of regulation and oversight of Wall Street. Do you think Republicans are going to be on board with that? What do you foresee in the next Congress?
Well, clearly, this effort was an effort to really impact the credit markets and get that liquidity going again. As we look forward, there are some important reforms that have to be made. Congressional regulation, executive regulation has not kept up with these new sophisticated financial instruments. Fannie and Freddie, a number of us were out there for years saying that they needed to be under SEC control. We couldn't build the legislative momentum to make that happen. Now, clearly, I think that will be there. So, people want accountability, and we want to see who's responsible for these things having occurred.
Congressman, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank
Bill,
you.
back to you.
All right, John, thanks very much.
Let's go down to Bob Pisani. He's rounded up Steve Grasso on the floor of the exchange.
Thanks very much, Sue.